Hey everyone, and welcome to the Rumcast. This is, of course, the podcast that talks all things rum related with the people who love and shape it. My name is John Gulla. Here with me is Will Hookinga. And together today, we get to reach far back into our rum cabinets to talk about a few rums that, for whatever reason, we might have neglected some over the past few years, why that might be the case, and whether our thoughts have changed since the last time we remember them. So I'm really excited to get into that, but Will, I want to ask you first how things are going over there in Nashville, and I know you're under a current weather warning, so I want to make sure that you're doing okay over there.
Things are looking dark and stormy right now. The Brood 19 cicadas are buzzing outside my window. There's a lot of weird natural phenomena occurring right now, but you know what? We don't complain. We just continue podcasting through it.
Yes.
And before we get, I'm excited about the back of the cabinet rums. I reach deep into my cabinet, John. I'm talking about reaching so far back that you have to use the little iPhone flashlight to make sure you can see what's back there. So really,
Speaking of dark, yeah,
up to the shoulder deep into the cabinet for some of these. So I'm excited to get to those. But real quick, something that's been on my mind, it's about to be summertime. And it's a special summer this summer because it's the Summer Olympics. Are you an Olympics guy, John? Do you enjoy the Summer Olympics? And if so, what are your events of choice?
I do to some extent, but I would say I'm a fan because my wife is a super fan of the Olympics.
Okay. So you're like a fan by association.
Exactly. And it's on at all times.
That's awesome.
Day and night, and we never miss the opening and closing ceremonies. She's huge into it, so therefore I am also huge into it. So yes, I like the Summer Olympics. I'm a huge soccer fan, as you know. I think we've said this on the podcast.
Olympic soccer USA, is phenomenal, yeah.
All the way. And, one of these days we might even win it in my lifetime, maybe. So that's the sport I love the most with it. I also do watch, hockey, basketball.
Is hockey in the Summer Olympics? That's Winter Olympics,
no,
right?
You're right. That's Winter Olympics. Sorry. No,
There's ice involved. It's got to be winter. Yeah.
My wife tends to gravitate more towards anything with a story of the people, the backstories.
Oh, for sure.
Which they do a
the
lot
stories.
Of.
Yeah.
Yes. But I think it's, it's like the gymnastics and some of that stuff. I'd be hard pressed to tell you anything track and field wise. I know some of the names, but that's about it. What about you?
I like the soccer. I love the basketball, as I'm sure people could guess. The gymnastics is always phenomenal. And like you said, anything good with a good story. Swimming some years has great stories.
Yeah.
When you think back on previous Olympic memories, John, what stands out to you? Who are the people that stand out to you? Not by name, but just what characteristic do they have in common when you think about past Olympics? Who do you think of?
I think of overcoming adversity a lot of times. I think people who don't give up and that they're committed in every way to being the best or among the best that are in the world.
This is all very nice and what you're saying is true. But what I'm trying to get at is, John, you remember the gold medal winners, right? The gold medal winners, the people who overcome and stand there at the end. You don't remember as much the silver winners, the bronze winners, and things like that. And the reason I bring this up is because we got news earlier this week that a rum that the show had a hand in bringing into the world, the Homesky Fiji blend, received a double gold medal at the San Francisco World Spirits Competition. I actually have to double check, make sure that's the official name. Yeah, San Francisco World Spirits Competition. It was very cool to see. Was super happy for Homesky. That's a brand that has kind of grown alongside the Rumcast. They put out great stuff. We love their stuff. As I said, that rum came out of an episode we did with Ian A. Shearer where we created a fictional rum blend, and then they actually sent us some ideas for what that blend could look like. Eric Kay came in the picture and was like, hey, could I taste these with you guys? And the blend that we all thought was the best was the what became the Homesky Fiji single origin blend.
Right.
And anyway, so it was very cool to see that. And I thought, let's mention it really quickly at the beginning of the show, just for fun, just as a little hat tip, to the fine folks at Homesky over there. And I was like, I want to check and see who else won these double gold medals.
Oh,
so I went to the website that has the results, and
double gold, by the way.
Double gold, yeah, not gold.
Makes it weird. Yeah, it's double gold.
Double gold.
But it's not like you won 2 different categories and you got 2 gold medals. It's double gold is better than single gold.
It's a gold that is twice as good. Even the Olympians can't say they won a double gold medal.
I was going to say, I want to know how much they paid the person that came up with that idea. It was like, no, 1 gold is not enough. It's double gold.
Yeah, it's the 7-minute abs or 6-minute abs or whatever of the gold medal world.
Step into my office. Single gold.
So, John, I want to ask you, if you had to guess, how many double gold medal winners do you think there were at this competition?
7.
7. That's a good guess.
Is it?
It's a good guess. Yeah,
it's a key number, so that's where I was going.
I thought it might be, like 2 to 3 double gold winners per category that they have.
How
at the
many are even in the competition? Because that's kind of germane to asking that. I don't know.
Yeah, you would think it is. If I told you that there were 854 double gold medal winners, would you be surprised, John?
Yes! Get the heck out of here. That's not true.
That's, if you go to the website, 854 double gold medal winners.
Just this year?
Just this year, John.
In all categories, right? This is everything in the competition? Yeah,
this is not just rum, this is everything. Okay. But just in scrolling quickly, I see a bunch of rums from a bunch of different rum brands.
Well, again, I want to know, did 10,000 enter into the competition? Because then, yes, it's meaningful. But if it's 1,000, then yes, it's not meaningful at all.
Well, the thing about a lot of these tasting competitions is they tend to not, give a lot of information about how many brands entered and that sort of thing. Feverishly scrolling now to see if they did in fact publicize that. I don't think they did. I'll double check.
Well, what about just filtering by rum? Did you?
I counted 42 rums that won double gold out of those 800 something. So 42 different rums. Anyway, my point, and this is not to take anything away from Holmes Key. Obviously, you and I think it's phenomenal rum. It's one that we would agree. Personally recommended.
I'm going to put 2 medals on it in my cabinet and make it double gold.
Exactly. But yeah, I was just a little surprised to see 854 double gold medal winners out there, and I'm waiting.
It just sounds wrong. Are you sure that's not like all years of it combined?
I'm pretty sure. It says 2024 SFWSC double gold medalists. So anyway, congrats to all 854 of the winners. And obviously some of those are, some brands have multiple entries. So it's not 854 distinct producers, but 854 total products. So anyway, congrats to them all as we look toward the Summer Olympics, just gold medals on the brain. And what I look forward to about the Olympics is per category, you get 1 gold medal winner, right? 1 gold medal winner. That's what makes them interesting and compelling and unique. So tasting competitions in the world, take note, But anyway, John, are we ready to taste some stuff? You got anything for me? What's on your mind?
I do. And by the way, I will say there's only one Rumcast Rum of the Year from each of us. So.
Exactly. Although I do feel like you get a little overzealous with the honorable mentions sometimes. You try to sneak a bunch in there.
I do. It's true. It's fair to say. All right. Well, yeah, because there's all these things. There's only one winner, but you want to highlight some other things, and I'm fine with that. But like you said, people don't remember the silver medalists, so there's that. All right. So I came up with this idea for us, Will, not long ago, based on something non-rum related, I guess you would say. So I had a question for you to start it off, and then we can lead into what I think we're talking about when we say exactly what we're doing with reaching back into our cabinets this time.
All right.
So my question to you is, what is your favorite TV show of all time?
Ooh, The Sopranos.
Oh, wow, that's a great pick.
Yeah? Are you a Sopranos fan?
Oh, once you're in the family, yeah,
There's no leaving the family. Yeah.
Exactly. I'm absolutely a huge Sopranos fan. Yes,
and I think a lot of fans of the show will tell you this, but if you haven't seen it, it is, I think, the funniest TV show I've ever seen. And it's not first and foremost a comedy, but on subsequent watches, it only gets funnier. It's amazing. It gets better with time. It's hilarious. I love it.
It does have those moments. It's almost like a good carving of like relief, right? When you have so much drama, but then you have these moments that stick out in a good comedic fashion, they're highlighted in the right way. So it works, right? I still remember the line, "There's no F and ZD," from
exactly.
the little kid. Yeah. That was great. What
about you?
I love The Sopranos. I still think my favorite show of all time is Firefly, which I think we've mentioned this before. I'm kind of a fanatic for Firefly Serenity.
Everyone who has seen Firefly that I know loves Firefly, but I have never seen Firefly. It came on homework. It came on the Sci-Fi Channel, right? Am I remembering correctly?
No, it was Fox. It was
Fox, really?
Fox, yes.
Maybe the Sci-Fi Channel just did reruns when I was a kid or something, you know?
That's probable. That I can think. Did you just say when you were a kid? I am not that old.
When did Firefly air? Is it like the 90s?
2003.
Oh, 2000. Okay, well, I was in high school then, so yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wow. So, yes, 2003 to 2005 or something along those lines. It was, less than that. I'm sorry. It was one season. It was 14 episodes. They canceled it before the season was even over. I don't have time to go into the specifics now with this, but if anybody wants an hour-long podcast of Firefly-specific stuff for a bonus episode, I'm down. We're in. But the point here is it's my favorite show of all time for many reasons, and it was unceremoniously canceled, then came back with a movie in 2005, Serenity. That actually failed also to make a lot of money, unfortunately. It's a fantastic movie, by the way. If you like sci-fi, you're going to love that movie.
All right.
Serenity's great.
I'll check it out, yeah.
So recently, and this is where the whole idea came in, I was sitting down to the TV, not, scrolling through Netflix, trying to find things. You know how that works, and you just can't find anything you're interested. And I was actually on Hulu as well, which we got recently. And there's Firefly. I own the DVD set. It's not like I don't have it right there, but you forget about these things. And so I put an episode of Firefly on, absolutely fell in love with it all over again. Every one of the characters, every one of the lines that I even know by heart, it doesn't matter because I just love it so much, and watched 7 episodes in a row, lost all sense of time and space, and just enjoyed myself.
That's the best.
And in doing so, it kind of came up with this idea of man, I haven't revisited that in so long, and wanted to go back to it, and then just remembered how much I loved it. And then I know there's sometimes where the opposite can happen, where you can love something in the moment, but then when you go back to it sometimes years later, it's not the same anymore. It changed in some way, or you've changed in some way, and therefore it's no longer, in the upper echelon of what you love, or for whatever, Right. I don't even know how to answer that. But so that's where this kind of idea came up of, we're looking at all of these rums. I don't know about you, Will. I have well over 300 bottles, or in that range. I think you probably have quite a few yourself. And
I've trimmed back here and there in recent years, just for sake of space. But yeah,
kudos to you.
It's a lot, and enough to where when I reached into the back of the cabinet, I was like, oh yeah, that. I haven't seen that in years. So
right. Yeah. That's where I was going with this. So, looking through these, and you forget about these things that you've had in there that you once really loved, and you loved it so much that you didn't want to get rid of it, right? It stayed in there for a reason. Like you said, sometimes we pull things out and we go, I don't need this anymore. Or you just finish it, right? And it's done. But there's something in there that you loved, and you hold on to it for a reason. So
I think I took a slightly different approach to this, where some of these bottles were stuff that I didn't necessarily love at the time, and you can, when I bring some of them out, you'll see how full they've remained after all these years. But a lot of times the reason I hang on to something is because I want it as a reference point, to compare to future releases, or just to do stuff like this, to go back and try it now and see, did I just drink this on the wrong day? Did it need multiple tastings? Well, it's kind of like sometimes with, I think we've talked about this before, but with music, there's some albums in my life that if I had only listened to it once, I never would have appreciated it. But you get to the third, the fourth listen, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. I love this. So some of these are more in that vein, things that I'm curious to see if I will enjoy, or if they'll be kind of in the same zone they were in previously, if I'll be able to appreciate them in different ways, or if I'll be like, yeah, why did I ever buy this? So it'll be fun.
Yeah, and I think with that, let's take a short break. We'll come back. We'll talk about some of the specifics that we applied to these, and then taste through them.
Let's do it.
All right, so we're back and we are ready to dig deep here into our archive of rum and see what we haven't tasted through in a while. But before we do that, let's talk over the really only the one kind of stipulation that we set for ourselves. A parameter, which was that we have to own it and we haven't tasted it for a minimum of 2 years, 24 months. In my case, it's probably a lot longer for some of these, but I'm not sure if you do this, but I don't log every rum that I try in my bar every time I do. So, you know, it's mostly going off of
way too nerdy for me.
Some people do probably, but tasting sessions, right? I don't know.
Yeah,
but,
and more power to anyone who does that. I'm just my personality type. If I have to incorporate elements of organization and stuff, it's just going to take the fun out of it for me. So,
right.
Yeah.
But I felt comfortable in saying I have 3 that I've picked here, and I believe you have the same, but we don't know each other's picks yet, just like we always do these type of things. So we're going to get to reveal that to one another. And I feel comfortable that it's been at least 2 years, if not pushing 3 or more in many cases here.
Yeah, it's been more for some of mine, and I only broke one of the rules for one of them. So I'll talk about that when I get to it.
That's my job.
I know. I'm putting on the John Gullah hat for this episode. But
yeah,
I think you're going to kick us off. So what was the first bottle that you reached way back for?
Okay, so the first one here was one that I kind of peered into my cabinet as I was looking through with this kind of idea in mind, and it stuck out to me a little bit. Mm-hmm. It kind of had a little shine on it, and I was like, that actually is one that I really remember fond things about, but haven't been to in a long time. And in fact, what was interesting about it to me was I have a memory, and maybe I'm wrong here because I haven't gone back and listened to our first or second episode, but I have a memory of talking about this rum in one of our very first episodes.
Okay.
And so interestingly, it's kind of I know for sure that I talked about it then, but I don't think it's come up much since then. This is a Puerto Rican rum. It is a rum that it's a little not well understood as to how it's made.
And you did talk about this very early on.
Yes. And so I wanted to revisit it. It's Rondel Barrilito 3-star.
Yes. I love that you picked this one because it's a fun rum. And it's one that even for me, with all of the misunderstood things about it or extra things that are present with it, I still have a soft spot for it. And I think it has its place and time, or time and place, as is the actual expression. And it's a rum that, even though it's probably been a year or two since the last time I had that, but I have a very fond memory of having a rum old fashioned at what's the name of the hotel where that claims, it's one of the places that claims to have done the first pina colada in Puerto Rico. I think the Caribe Hotel or Caribe Hotel, something like that. And they made me a rum old fashioned with Rondel Barrilito 3 stars, and the patio was open, the sea air was blowing in, and it's just a very nice, happy memory. So yeah, that rum is a special place for me. But I'm curious because I think early on, I think you may have actually talked about that rum in one of our practice episodes. So I don't know if people know this, but before we actually committed to putting episodes out, we were like, let's do a podcast date basically, and we recorded 1 or 2 just trial episodes that we never published. I don't even know if the file still exists, but I think it was in one of those that rum came up, and you expressed your extreme fondness for it. You were very high on it, loved that rum. So I'm curious to see how it's aged for you.
Well, thank you for making me remember the practice episodes that we did. Yes, that was a very interesting time. So I'm glad you mentioned that because I did love it back then, and I have a fondness for it as well. I've always really liked this rum. In fact, I like it so much. I almost might prefer this to the 4 and the 5-star version.
So I've done the lineup at the, I was going to say distillery. It's not a distillery, but it's the production site where they age Rondel Barrilito and blend it. And I did the lineup: the 2-star, the 3-star, the 4-star, the 5-star. The 5-star is I think it's extremely expensive, and I think you have to get it at the production facility. And
I've seen it here in Miami, but I know that's just because it's so close in proximity. I'm assuming somebody bought it there and brought it back for resale.
That could be it. But it's extremely expensive, very old rums that go into that blend. Like some of them I think are over like 30 something years old. I preferred the 4 out of all of them. I thought the 4 was the best in terms of just like pure sipping experience, but that one is also very expensive. So the 3, which I do think some people think the pricing on the 3 is a little bit high, and I know it's gone up in recent years as well, but I really enjoy the 3. It's tell people a little bit about like what its deal is for those who maybe aren't as familiar with Ron del Barrilito and just like, what's in the bottle.
Sure. So I think that's a good point, right? Number one is it's a 43% ABV. So this is one of the very first rums that I can remember in my journey being above 40 ABV, the standard. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that kick, I think, helps it. I think that's a good thing. The thing that people talk about a lot with this, though, is it's not a distillery, right? Right. So it doesn't distill on site any longer. I think you mentioned, and I know you know much more about the history of this than I do, that they did at one point, maybe?
It hasn't been a distillery since before Prohibition, but it was pre-Prohibition. They distilled their own rum, and once Prohibition was repealed, I think it was just like, they'd gotten into other stuff, and it was just kind of like, hey, let's just source and age. So, yeah.
Right. So they're doing all of their aging on site, and they have a special process, you might say, they refer to, which it's so weird because you see some information and sometimes they'll talk about it openly, people who are involved in it, and then other times it feels very hidden and not referred to at all. And so it really leaves this kind of question mark and mystery of what they do with the rum. Now, my understanding is that there is a process that they use where they're macerating fruits as part of what they're doing with the aging process, or that they're macerating fruits and steeping it before they put it into a barrel. I'm not really sure how exactly that works. And then they barrel age it on site in small barrels, right? Hence,
they're not small. They're not small barrels. They're sherry. They're sherry casks. They're all sherry casks. So they're actually bigger than your standard 53-gallon ex-bourbon cask. So it's
I always had a misconception. I thought the name barrilito, which means a little barrel,
it does, but that's more like the origin story from the 19th century of like the founder. I forget I know it's the Fernandez family. I forget the founder's name.
Edmundo.
It was
on the bottle.
Edmundo, Edmundo Fernandez kept special rum in a little barrel, and guests would get the rum from the little barrel. Is kind of how it goes. But they don't still age all their rum in little barrels. It's sherry cask aging, which is part of also what makes it a little different. And the fruit maceration note is a good one to bring up. And at one time, I like wrote out a very thorough step-by-step of how the process went, and I don't have it in front of me right now, but I'll try from memory to do it justice. My understanding is, so they source rum, right? Just unaged distillate, and what they do is they take a portion of that, and they have these big wooden vats all around the production site. They're I don't know, they're probably like 12 feet tall or something like that. And in each one, they have some of that distillate, and they have some sort of dried fruits or spice or something like that. They say that it's all locally sourced. Obviously, I have no way of verifying that, but that's what they say when you tour the facility. And they macerate those in these individual vats, and then they blend all of these macerations together to make like a super maceration blend. And then they blend a small portion of that in with the rum distillate that has not been macerated in anything, and they barrel that together. And I believe what they told me is that it's only 2.5% of what ends up in a cask is that maceration rum. So the vast majority of it is straightforward, column still rum distillate, and then they have that little bit of macerated rum distillate blended in. And then they put it in sherry casks, and it ages there. And then all of their products are blends of rums of various age ranges. Is 3 Star like 6 to 10 years?
I believe that's right.
It's something in that range, yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, I think it's one of those processes that, according to them, that's like how they've always done it for over 100 years or whatever. And I think prior to them being acquired by a new business group. They were acquired by a member of the Bacardi family several years back. And they're not owned by Bacardi, but they're owned by a Bacardi family member.
If that wasn't confusing enough. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I believe they used to source some of their rum from Bacardi as well. Although I think that's what I thought. That has stopped in recent years, and I think they're having to go to other sources.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, I think prior to when it was just like this small family run business, I don't think necessarily they were hiding that's how they made their rum. I just don't think they didn't have like that much, PR marketing like stuff out there really telling the story of the brand. It was just kind of this small family business thing that they did. And I think since the brand has been acquired by a group that is, I think, more interested in really growing it than perhaps the previous ownership was, I think they've been a lot more forthcoming in just getting that story out there, because they from their point of view, I think that process, it's not a bad thing, even though I think in the eyes of some rum purists, they're probably like, oh, so it's a rum with additives. They don't really see it that way. They just see it as kind of this unique heritage process, and obviously opinions on that will differ. I will say I haven't tested it personally. I don't believe it's sweetened in any way. You're probably going to pick up a little extra sweetness maybe from the sherry casks.
I would agree.
But yeah. So anyway, that's the spiel.
And I'm glad you filled that in. And from my perspective, so I'm going to talk a little bit about me retasting it here today. And I'll be forthcoming. I tasted these also last night for the first time in 2 years, right? Or more.
Got it.
And when I went through it, there was some things that I wanted to pull out of it for you, and maybe you get similar things. But I would say it is a sweet rum in the sense of it's about as sweet as I want my rum. If it was any sweeter, I wouldn't want it. So it just approaches the line of where it should be. It still has a nice kind of balance to it, rounded, a little bit of some hint of a smokiness or something there, which is interesting. And it plays off of that sweetness in just the right way. The sherry influence is absolutely there. I mean, I would have picked this out a mile away in a blind tasting in terms of sherry. So, but all that comes together in an interesting way. It's thin. It's quite thin, actually. So I know this is a light rum, right? But it is, in the mouthfeel, it's very much on the thin side. It doesn't have a super great nose to it. It's pleasurable. It's pleasant, but it's not the star of it. But all that said, it feels like I disparaged the heck out of it, right? All that said, I still love this rum.
Yeah.
I enjoy sipping this rum neat. It's not going to blow anybody away. If you're listening to this podcast, most likely this is a rum that's not going to blow you out of the water. It's just going to be good and undeniably good in the sense of you keep wanting to go back and sip more. It brings you back to the glass quite often.
Let me ask you, does we talked about the whole macerated fruit thing. Does that, when you taste it, does it taste to you like a rum that is flavored in some way?
I get orange notes from it pretty prominently. So if it was macerated with oranges or orange peels, I would not be surprised in any way because, that's not something I usually get from a sherry finished rum. And this one I get in pretty, that's why it works so well, I think, in an old fashioned, it is something of the orange note in there that really just hits it off in a nice way. Again, not dominant, not in a way that I feel like gets in the way of the rum to the point of not enjoying it. It doesn't bother me. I'm okay if I could just have them kind of definitively say it would be helpful, if they had just come out and said, look, here's our process. We do this. And I know in some cases they've done that, but then it still feels like it's hard to pin that down. And I get it.
No, there's absolutely sources out there where you can go and someone from Rondel Barrilito goes step by step through telling you what the process is. Now, they're not going to say we put exactly this much of this dried fruit and everything.
Well,
there's a secret sauce or whatever.
Exactly.
To me, and it's like I said, it's probably been a couple of years since I last had that rum neat, but it never tasted to me like a flavored rum. It's a rum with fruity notes in it that are the type of fruity notes I would pick up in just a standard, a rum that doesn't go through that process. So let
me put it this way. It's what any flavored rum would love to be. And And I mean that in the sense of like I get flavors out of this, but it doesn't taste like a flavored rum. It tastes like something that is done.
Yeah, see,
a good job of aging.
I think most mass-produced commercial flavored rums don't want to taste like rum. They just want to taste like the flavor, you know. But I get what you're saying.
I want them to. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
All right, let's move on to your,
All right, so
your
it's
first pick here.
the takeaway is it stood the test of time. It's still a rum you really enjoy,
right.
and
yeah. I was gonna say I had kind of thought these through in the sense of like, well, did my estimation improve? Did it go down, or did it kind of stay the same? I would say this one has stayed the same. To your point, it's still good there. I'm still going to bring it out, especially for rum noobs. I think this is a great one for people that drink other spirits but aren't as into rum, for them to enjoy and go, whoa, this is really good. So that's kind of what I keep it around for, to come back to every now and then. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm ready to tell you all about my first one, and I'm going to start with the one that I broke a rule for. And
okay.
It's funny because it kind of really goes against the spirit of the exercise, but in some ways I feel I'm justified. So
this is our podcast, Will. We get to do what we want. Yeah,
it is. So I reached way back into the cabinet of my memory for this one.
Ooh, okay.
And what I mean by that is one of the very first, I think this was the first rum that really got me to start going down the rum rabbit hole. And I think I've mentioned the story before, but the seed of rum interest in my mind was planted when my wife Samantha and I went on our honeymoon in Maui, and you know, there's the Hawaii version of the Mai Tai everywhere over there, and you know, we drank a bunch of them. They were great. You know, it has like the dark rum float and the pineapple juice. It's not the traditional Trader Vic way, but it was delicious. And a few years went by. We were living in Minnesota at the time. It was cold. You know, I wanted something that reminded me of being on the beach. And I was like, I should try to make a Mai Tai. And I wasn't someone who really made cocktails at home at all. I didn't know anything about spirits, but I started looking up Mai Tai recipes. And this is actually really funny. I want to show you a picture that I still have of one of the first Mai Tais I ever made. And I think I know you paint yourself as not being a cocktail guy, but I think you know enough about the Mai Tai to spot what might be interesting about this photo. So I'm gonna share it.
Well, don't overestimate me with that.
So these are all the ingredients that went into one of my early Mai Tais. We have here, for those who cannot see, a bottle of Trader Joe's pineapple juice. We have, for some reason I cannot remember, guava juice. We have the cheapest bottle of orange curacao I'm sure I could find there. Yeah. I think the brand is LaRue, maybe. We have some B.G. Reynolds orgeat syrup. We have, and this is really embarrassing, bottled simple syrup. Come on, who's buying bottled simple syrup, man? Just a huge L for me back in 2015 when this photo was taken. We do have
just starting out.
We do have fresh limes, okay?
Yeah.
So it wasn't going with the pre-made lime juice or bottled lime juice. Then to get to the rums, this is the important part. We have two things here, and this actually really tugs on the nostalgia. We have a bottle of Appleton VX. So this was before they changed it to Appleton Signature even. This is the old Appleton Signature, basically the entry-level aged Appleton in that range. And then, John, we have the rum that started it all for me, which was not the Appleton VX, which might be surprising to some people. It was the bottle of Myers's Original Dark Jamaican rum. Yeah. John, are you familiar with Myers's? I actually, this is I don't know how to handle this, but everyone, when they type this rum out, they just say Myers. But if you look on the label, it's Myers's.
It's a possessive. It's Myers's rum.
It's apostrophe S. And
if he comes looking for it, you better give it back to him because it's his.
But when I say it out loud, it's kind of like, sometimes I know I'm supposed to say whom in the sentence, but I don't say it because I feel like I'll sound like an asshole if I do, you know? Yep. When I say Myers's, I feel like people are going to be like, why is he saying it like that? But that's just the right way to say it, okay? So, you know, Myers's, whatever. It's a little awkward to say Myers's, but, you know, we're doing it for accuracy's sake. Anyway, do you have much experience with Myers's Original Dark Fine Jamaican Rum?
I don't, actually. I don't own a bottle of Myers's. I've had it at some point, but it's most likely been in a cocktail.
Yeah.
and not on its own. So I can't honestly tell you I've ever tasted Myers's neat before.
So I had been wanting to revisit this bottle for a long time because whatever it is, when I tasted this rum, and I think early on I would use it as like a float on top of drinks. And so you get that like aroma from it. And it was the rum that made me want to learn more about rum, as funny as that sounds. But I hadn't revisited it in forever. And I unfortunately did not still have a bottle of it, but I'd been wanting to do this for so long. I was like, if I still had a bottle, I know it would be in the back of my cabinet by now. So it is like spiritually a back of the cabinet bottle for me. So I went out and I got a fresh bottle of Myers's original dark rum. And I noticed some key differences, Sean. There's some very interesting stuff to me going on. First of all, I'm going to hold the bottle up for you. Let me take this off of the screen so you can see it. Does this look the same as the bottle in the photo you just saw?
Are they all plastic? They're all like the full bottle's plastic? Woof.
This bottle is fully plastic. The bottle you saw in the photo was not. It was glass, and it had a shape almost similar to like the Habitation Vellier bottles, I always liked it. I always thought it was distinctive, and I know the label isn't classic.
Oh my God, that looks like ketchup.
It's so I would compare it to a bottle of Listerine is how it feels in the hand, the plastic one. But
barbecue sauce, maybe.
Yeah, it's like it is. It's like a condiment, basically. But I always also had a soft spot for the label itself. I don't think it's beautiful in like it's not classic in like pretty sense. It's classic in like the mellow corn label kind of sense. It's like the rum version of the mellow corn label. You know what I'm talking about?
I do.
It reminds me of that, just where it just looks old and like it just screams like 70s to me, kind of. And so I've just always liked it a little bit. And anyway, so I went in the store and I had noticed over the years that it was in a plastic bottle now, but I'd never really picked one up and just felt like truly how shitty it feels in the hand. I was just like, it's seriously, it feels like a bottle of Listerine. I just couldn't get over it. And even the back of it, like this is all the info. There's this little tiny sticker that is probably, 2 inches by
2 by 3.
Yeah, 2 by 3. No, not even 3. It's like 2 by 1.5 maybe.
Oh.
And literally all it says is just who imports it. And it says, we love to hear from our customers, info@sazerac.com. And it has a phone number on it too. Anyway,
and 50% of that is barcode.
Yeah. So it's seen better days. The Myers's bottle has. But what really stood out to me, John, I hadn't been pricing Myers's exactly in my recent years. I haven't really kept up with the evolution of the price. But how much would you think this bottle of rum is? I'm assuming you don't regularly check the Myers's price. What would you assume? This is an 80 proof rum, no age statement. And if you know the details, I think it's very lightly aged, blend of rums under, 3 or 4 years, something like that. And it's obviously been colored with, caramel color, much like a Karuba, although it's not quite as dark as Karuba. I compared them. But anyway, what would you think it is pricing wise, this plastic bottle of Listerine-esque rum?
If I saw that in a store, and normally I consider myself pretty good with price gauging, but I can't see that selling for anything around more than $15. Just the way it looks at me.
After tax, try twice as expensive is what I paid for this.
Really?
I paid $30 after tax. I think it was listed as like $27 or something like that.
Wow.
And I was stunned because the rums that I compare this to are things like Karuba, like I mentioned earlier, which is that, heavily colored Jamaican rum intended for mixing. And you can this is a 750 milliliter bottle. You can get a liter bottle of Karuba. I think it was $19.99 listed at the store that I was at. And I was actually, I keep Karuba on hand because I really like it in dark and stormies, and I was out of Karuba, so I refreshed my bottle of Karuba. I got a bottle of this. I even went to another liquor store in town just to be like, is this an anomaly that they're charging this much? It was not an anomaly. It was actually more expensive at the next liquor store I went to. In one, it was $7 more than Karuba, and one, it was $9 more than Karuba. And obviously there's a wide range of prices, but I pulled up Total Wine's website as well. And here are some rums on Total Wine that are cheaper or equal to what Myers is listed for, which they list it for $24.99. Dourly's XO, Dourly's 8-year, Appleton Signature, Gosling's, Eldorado 5-year. Those are all, most of those are cheaper. I think it was just Dourly's XO that was equal in price to it. When I went to Pike's, which is an online liquor store that we've mentioned on the show before, all of the above, of the above were cheaper. I think the price on Pike's for Myers is, by the way, $32.99 somehow. No idea how that's happening. But
wow.
So rums that were cheaper.
Maybe it's still the glass bottle version.
I don't think so. Dourly's 12 was cheaper. Barbancourt 8-year. Dr. Bird, Hamilton Demerara, Hamilton Pot Still Black, Money Musk Special Gold, Mount Gay Eclipse, Pussers, Real McCoy 5. This rum is more expensive than all of those. I could not figure out, John, what is going on with this because, and again, when I was buying Myers' rum, I was not really a rum enthusiast at that point. So in my memory, it was just a cheap bottle of rum, but I don't know if I've asked a few people, and some people have said that Myers has always been a little overpriced relative to its competitors around, things like Karuba. But I just was stunned at how expensive this was. So I had to do a blind taste test comparison, comparing it to Karuba after seeing that. And Karuba was the clear winner for me. They're actually similar in a lot of ways. And, on the nose, this rum actually has a decent nose for an 80 proof, cheap rum, even though it's actually monetarily not that cheap. But you get like some nice orange zest notes. You get obviously, some caramel from the color that's added to it. But there's, some cloves, some ripe banana going on. Obviously, this is not a sipping rum. So as a sipping experience, it is lacking for sure. But what I really wanted to compare them in, even though Karuba to me had much more coming through on the palate from the nose than Myers's did, but I wanted to try them in dark and stormies next to each other. So using Fever Tree ginger beer, which is my ginger beer of choice, tried them again. Karuba, hands down the winner. So unfortunately, Myers's has not aged as well as it was when it was the rum that pulled me into wanting to know more about rum and learn that, in fact, guava juice does not really belong in a Mai Tai. Nor should a Mai Tai, if you're wanting to do accurate, nor should it be a split of two Jamaican rums. Although, if you want, it was
supposed to be a cane juice rum, right?
Well, that's disputed too. It's the original recipe was Jamaican and Martinique, but there's some speculation that the Martinique rum was actually a molasses rum from Martinique rather than a cane juice. So anyway, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but I would just love to hear if anyone has any insight into how this rum gets away with charging so much more. And the only thing that I can think is just this brand has been around for so long.
Brand.
It's brand recognition, and it's available like literally everywhere, you know. But I just don't understand, like, if you are a bar, maybe it's because it's all you can get distribution wise in your market. I just don't know why any bar would pay more for this if they could get Karuba or I feel like you even Eldorado 5 is something that you could kind of, serve in its place. But anyway, the only thing I could think of is I know this brand was owned by Diageo for a long time. And in 2018, Sazerac bought it along with a bunch of other brands. And I think it was after that the move to these disgusting plastic bottles. This is actually one packaging thing that I think we're aligned on. A lot of times, the cheaper packaging I have a soft spot for. We've argued about boxed rum before, which I just think is super cool, and you don't like at all. But this plastic bottle is just not it. It's so bad. Anyway, I think that's when they made the change to this, and I don't know if they started increasing the price a little bit or what. I'd love to hear if any listeners have thoughts on that. Send us an email at host@rumcast.com. Yeah. But anyway, so I'm sad to say that it's not lining up with the nostalgia I once had for it.
Yeah. I feel like the reason that they're able to do this is simply name brand recognition. That Myers, for the long time that it's been around, has been such a staple that people look for it in a menu. And when they're out and they say, oh, it's got Myers' rum in it, I'll take that. versus somebody not maybe knowing enough about some of the other ones. Although you have to imagine a lot of people, we've had this conversation about Appleton and how well known that might be, and others as well. But that has to be it, right? And they're just, to use the metaphor, boiling the frog in hot water. Like where you raise the price just a little bit, and nobody kind of notices, and it's not a big deal. And maybe that's where they're at. But that, like you said, that plastic bottle that's awful.
Yeah.
So I feel like they've got a reckoning coming. Yeah.
I don't know for sure that they have raised the price. That's just like, and obviously prices rise with inflation over a 10-year period anyway.
Sure, exactly.
But it just feels like relative to its analogs in the market that the gap has widened. And since Sazerac bought them, I know they've started doing some like single barrel picks and stuff. I actually haven't tried any of those, but they've started releasing other like higher end products under the Myers's line that are in glass bottles, and they have a different label, and they're more I think generally I see them priced in like the 45 to 60 range. I haven't had any of them,
or whatever it was,
but also maybe it's the case of like those kind of allowing this to come up in price. But again, I just can't. And the 1 liter bottles, most stores I saw, they sell it in 750 and 1 liter, and the 1 liter still is glass, but it's different from the old bottle. Which maybe they were always like this is 1 liter, I don't know, but it's like a cylindrical bottle shape. But yeah, this is just beyond the pale. So anyway, in terms of has my opinion improved or not, I would say, yeah, if this was once the rum that got me into rum, it's no longer, it will always be that, but my opinion of it now is not improved. Yeah. If I'm looking for a rum to play the role that this rum typically plays, I will continue to buy Karuba instead.
If you can find it. I know some people have
it's pretty easy to find here. And actually what I'd love to buy more consistently is Worthy Park 109. But unfortunately that's not around here. So hopefully one day that will arrive and all my problems will be solved.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to move on to my second of the 3 here. And you mentioned, and we're not going to dig into it like you said, but you mentioned that there was a rum in a Mai Tai that was disputed whether or not from Martinique it was a molasses or a cane juice rum that went into the Mai Tai. Well, that's as good as any a segue into my second one here, because the second one that I reached back for, it was kind of hard not to notice, I'll say, because of the packaging. Which I actually like, and I think this is another one that you and I might align on in terms of packaging.
All right.
But it is a bright orange. It is unmissable in terms of
the bottle
out.
Or the rum?
Yes. No, the bottle. So just to be fair. Yeah, no, not the rum. The bottle is a bright orange, kind of a University of Miami orange, or maybe even like a Florida orange.
Okay, so not like not Tennessee creamsicle. It's more of the darker orange. Okay, I gotcha.
Yes. And this is the TCRL Guadalupe 2013.
Oh, wow. That is still very full. You must not have been very into that the first time you tried it.
I'm glad you noticed that, actually.
I've always liked the TCRL labels. That's the old style. It's evolved a little bit since then, but seeing that old one does make me a little nostalgic now.
Just to give you a little bit of the boilerplate on this one, this is from the Bon Mier distillery in Guadeloupe on the main island, I believe there, and bottled by La Maison Vellier. This is a 43% ABV as well, aged a total of 4 years. It's 3 years tropical and 1 year continentally aged, which is the whole premise behind the TCRL line in the first place. And this one intrigued me because, as we were saying, Guadeloupe, they usually make cane juice rums.
Yeah.
But they also make molasses rums. They're just a little harder to find in the United States, especially, I think. So when I saw this available and saw that, this is not only a Guadeloupe rum, which I didn't at the time have a lot of experience with, it was also the molasses version, I was very intrigued to get it and pick it up. And at the time, I remember being somewhat fond of it in terms of what I really liked about it was how different and unique it was as part of my then collection. So that I could say if I wanted to try something very different, I had this to go to. But as you pointed out, I wasn't a super fan of it, just enough that I wanted to keep it around, to your point of what we talked about in the intro of like, maybe I need to evolve with this, and or maybe when I come back to it at some point, it will hit different, as the kids like to say nowadays. So with that, I went ahead and I just tried this one last night, and I've got it again in my glass now. And what is super interesting to me is the nose to start with really doesn't smell like your typical molasses rum nose. I would have, in a blind tasting, this smells to me like a cane juice rum.
Interesting. Well, you wouldn't be the first to make that mistake. I've certainly made that mistake before in some of our blind tasting adventures.
Yeah. It's like, it's got some of the hallmarks of maybe a nose on a lightly aged rum like this, and it's very, kind of golden in color, consistent with what you might expect. But there's this like saline or like salty water thing coming through, and that just kind of throws me into a different space. And even now, so I don't remember what my thoughts were at the time, but now I'm going through this and I'm like, it's just very weird and different. And when you taste it, the palate on it is good. This is a well-made rum. It's soft and nicely rounded, I would say. And it's got this tinge of the rubber bandy type of note that we sometimes get in either a Carigny or a Lafroig or something like that. But it's not overpowering here. It's playing, I don't know, second fiddle to some of the other things that are going on in it. So I wish I could say that I love this rum, but as I tasted through it, and again, I'm tasting through it right now and nosing it, I can appreciate it for its quality. It's super well made, but I don't really love it for its flavor. I don't know what to do with it. I'm kind of at a loss. It's not overly complex, and it's got, it's sort of fine. And I want to love it. I want to love it for all the reasons that I love the label. I love the TCRL line. I love a lot of other Guadalupe rums that I've had since this bottle. I absolutely adore. And so I want to bring that in, but I can't.
It sounds like your feelings now may be aligned with what they were initially, because how much rum is left in the bottle is almost always a good indicator of enjoyment. Now, sometimes there are exceptions where you get something and you like it, but you just have a lot of other stuff come in and it just kind of,
right.
gets tucked
or it's
away.
Special in some way.
Yeah, or you're savoring it. But
yeah,
it sounds like one that is, as you said, well made, interesting, because it's somewhat hard to find molasses rums from Guadalupe like that, in the US at least, but one that ultimately is not all that enjoyable to you. Is that an accurate description?
I think so. And the price was okay for this one. I remember paying around the $50 to $60 mark for it at the time. I think the TCRL line has definitely gone up since then. But this one's also lower in ABV. A lot of the TCRL line has also gone up in ABV as well. So, I felt okay for it in terms of the price for it and its how different it is and special. But I wouldn't buy this bottle again. And I'm not, like I said, I want to ask kind of in crowdsource if people, have this or have had it in the past. What do you do with this besides, drinking it neat? Where does this even go in? Like, how would I make the most out of this and appreciate it? Because I honestly don't know.
Let's get John some ideas for the TCRL 2014. Is that right? 2013?
Yeah, 2013.
Yeah. Yep. Let's get him some ideas. Okay, well, it sounds like your opinion then, this is did not improve.
It certainly did not improve, and I want to say I talked it up more than I'm talking it up now, so maybe I'm just being more honest about it now. Sometimes when you get a rum, you've invested in it, you want to like it, you're like, yeah, sure. I made a good purchase.
Yeah.
But, this many years afterwards, I'm like, no, I not into it.
Yeah. The proof, all right. The proof is in the bottle. You've had maybe 3 ounces out of that bottle total. So, all right, moving on. My next pick, it's a little bit different in that this is a rum I purchased. It wasn't at the extreme beginning of my rum journey. It was a little deeper into it. And I purchased it around when I was kind of going through my everything needs to be cask strength, pot still phase, okay. For it to be interesting and like really, really good. It's got to be high ABV. It's got to be pot still, get out of here with the column stills with the lower ABV. We all have a phase, for some of us it's a long phase. For some of us it's a short phase. I'd like to think it was a short phase for me, but I purchased this bottle during that time, and it's one that, I had and thought was fine, but I just kind of wrote off because of what it was. So,
okay, I'm interested.
This is Grander 12-year. So this is their standard. This isn't one of the like single barrel picks or anything like that.
They have the 8 and the 12 as their standard line. Yeah.
Yep.
Gotcha.
The 12-year release, which is, I think we've talked about this before, but somehow paler than the 8-year release has always been an interesting quirk. Mm-hmm. It is bottled at 90 proof. Grander's whole thing, they source rum from Panama. It's no additives. They do, a variety of interesting cask finishes and a lot of barrel picks and things like that now. One of the first Rumcast interviews was Dan Dehart from Grander. That's right. So I'm sure our listeners in the States are familiar with the brand. But, it's column still distillate. It's a lighter style of rum. A lot of cask-driven flavor. And I think when I got this, you can see I've probably had maybe a fourth out of this bottle. But again, I've had this for I'm pretty sure I bought this bottle pre-pandemic. So it goes way back for me. And it is, kind of remained in the last back third of my cabinet. I've not had it in a while. So visiting it now, and I don't know if I mentioned, but it's distilled at the Las Cabras distillery. So this is, it's part of the Don Pancho family, if you're familiar. Aged in ex-bourbon and some sherry cask aging as well, at least when, I don't know if that's still the case, but on this bottle it says that. And, John, as I mentioned, I feel I've matured a little as a rum drinker. I don't need everything to be from a pot still. I don't need everything to be high ABV or cask strength or whatever. And so I approached this with a very open mind, a very different place from how I originally approached it. And you know what? I found a lot to like about this rum.
Really?
For what it's trying to be, which I think is an approachable rum that can be sipped, but isn't trying to blow your hair back or anything like that. There's a lot of subtle, interesting stuff going on. A very approachable nose. It's almost kind of like vanilla cream, light fruit, like peach pear. It's got a little bit of the white gummy bear thing and something that's almost white wine-ish to it. It's got this kind of Riesling quality to it for me. And a lot of that comes through on the palate. You get a little bit more from the barrel on the palate, but it's just, it's subtle in flavor, but it's got stuff going on. And it's not just a boring rum. It's not going to punch you in the face like Pot Still Jamaican or something like that. But for those who want something that's easy to drink, it's not just devoid of... It's not overly simplistic, is what I'm trying to say. It's simple, but in a well-executed way.
Yeah. Is this the only bottle of Grander that you have in your bar?
So I have at least one single barrel Grander. It's the only standard lineup Grander. So the other one that I know I have is cask strength and I think it's probably 8 years or something like that. So a much different type of rum. Okay.
The reason I was asking is for me, that is my least favorite of any of the Granders I've ever had is the 12. And it always, like you said, it kind of perturbed me a little that the 12 was so different and not quite what I was expecting, I guess you would say. After I loved the 8. The 8 was one of I think the first 3 rums that I ever purchased was the 8. It was a barrel pick from Crown Spirits here in Florida. And I was just overwhelmed with how great I thought it was at the time, and still think so. Actually, I think it was a very fine rum. And when I tried some of their other stuff, and I don't remember where I tried the 12, it was at a show probably, I was kind of really underwhelmed by it and saddened by it because I really think that they do great stuff with a lot of their other releases. And since that time, I think Dan has done a fantastic job of expanding the finishes that he does. And like you mentioned, there's some cask strength, but they're not all necessarily cask strength. There's the trophy release, I think, or something that he does, which is very good. And still, to me, I almost feel like he should abandon the 12 is what I would have told you prior to your review of it. Having heard you say that there's still redeeming qualities is actually exciting and interesting. I think so.
Some of it depends because when I'm reacting to this now, I'm not judging it within the context of the whole lineup. And, I could see a scenario where I have it side by side with the 8 and I think the 8 is better. Right. And I don't know what the price of this is either. I want to say when I bought it, it was somewhere around $50 or something like that. Don't quote me on that. But anyway, so I don't know if from a price standpoint or whatever, it makes sense. It might not be the best bang for your buck if you're wanting to try Grander rums, maybe start with the 8 year. But just in a vacuum, trying this now, isolated, I'm just saying from the approach of a column still light rum that is at a lower strength, yeah. I think it executes that well. Now, if it's all the value for the money, I don't know. But it's free to me because it's just sitting there hanging out in the back of my cabinet. So, I'm not going to stick this all the way in the back. I'm going to scoot something else back there. And I'm going to keep this a little bit more, wow. in the front half, because I think this is a very nice, easy drinking, like, Friday at 5 p.m. Just want to relax and unwind a little. Just pour a glass of this. You don't have to think about it. It's nice. It's sippable. It's not going to knock you out right away because it's 90 proof. So it's just a very sessionable rum.
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt about the Rondel Barrilito. So it kind of is lining up a little bit, but with the, that one for me is a session rum, as you say. Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, I still love Grander's bottle as well. Are we aligned on bottle yet again?
It's a great bottle. Yeah. And actually, I'm looking now. Total Wine on their website has this listed for $40.99. So at that price, I think it's good. And again, maybe the 8 year is more affordable and better. I don't know. But I mean, if you can get this for low 40s, which, it looks like that's what it typically is in most places. I'm seeing $42.99 at Sarasota Liquor Locker. $41.99. So low 40s. I think it's a fine buy, particularly for someone who is new to rum. I think it fits in that Rondel Barrilito wheelhouse, where this is, I would say, is a little more subtle in flavor, whereas Rondel Barrilito, you really get those sherry casks coming through, and probably you get some characteristics from that maceration process as well. This is a little bit more, I don't want to use the word pure, but sort of unadorned, I will say.
All right. Let's transition over to my last one here, because I'm really excited to talk about this one. When we kind of had this idea and I went and searched through, I have to say this is the one that was staring at me the most. And it was impossible.
Did you put some googly eyes on the bottle?
I should have. It actually has enough space for them, for sure. And I say that because staring at me, I had no choice, because it's on the top shelf. It's very much in eye height, right? Eye level. And it's huge. It's unmissable. And
I'm picturing one of those, sometimes you go to like an Italian restaurant, they have one of those giant novelty Aperol or Campari bottles that's like...
No, it's not that.
Massive. That's what I'm picturing.
I do. Well, it is big because the packaging is large.
Okay.
And normally I wouldn't keep things in the packaging, but in this case, I found the packaging to be so nice and pleasant that I had to keep it, despite the extra room it really does take, where I could have put one or two other bottles. This is also, I want to say, pre-pandemic, and it was the biggest rum purchase I had made for quite a long time, and the only one that I probably spent more than $150 on for a very long time until more recently.
Everything you're telling me adds up to like one of those rums that you buy early on in your rum journey that you really regret spending the money on. So I'm really curious to learn what this is.
All right. Well, from that note, or on that note, here it is. It is, drum roll, Appleton Estate Joy.
This is not what I was thinking.
Year. Yes.
Yeah.
Special release that came out. I don't know exactly when this was dropped, but I feel like it was like 2018-ish, in and around there.
Maybe something like that.
It could have been earlier than that. Yeah. So I've had this forever. And when I bought it, I remember exactly what you just said, feeling kind of like, gosh, I'm really let down by this.
Oh, really? See, I was going to go the other way. I thought I was wrong, because I feel like Joy generally has a favorable perception in the rum enthusiast community as like, it's lower ABV. I know it's not high strength or whatever, but that it's like, a really beautiful blend.
Yeah. I mean, I do nowadays, spoiler alert, I'll tell you, I think it's really nice now. But
you were underwhelmed at first.
I was. I felt like, man, I love the bottle, I love the presentation, but the rum itself just kind of wasn't working for me at the time. And before we go any further, let me give some of the specifics on it. This is obviously from Appleton from Jamaica. It's a 45% blend of a minimum of 25 years. There's people who say that it's above that as well. Like, so there's some 35-year and 30-year blended into it, but the minimum is 25. It's a pot and column still blend. It was a special release by Joy Spence, the master blender for Appleton. And again, I don't know exactly when it came out, but I know I bought mine back in and around 2019-ish. So All of that said, when I saw this one, I wanted to go back to it because it's been so long since I've touched it, and I broke it open. I put it in the glass, and I was amazed.
That's the best.
Isn't it, though? Like you said, I feel like finally it took that long for me to somehow appreciate it. And I was just excited that I was able to. And by the way, I came into it with no expectations. I said, I'm going to just, let me see how it goes, knowing that I wasn't super into it before. But there is a lot here with this blend. It's subtle. Like you said, at 45, it's not going to knock you out. It's not the Appleton Hearts series, right? But there's something in this that is really, like you said, well executed. That was the note that I had for this one. Just very well executed. There's something in there that's got the characteristic, like quintessential Appleton, but then mixes in these kind of melon notes and like something like old books, like the smell and even taste somehow of old books. Beautifully balanced with a dance of like spice and oak and a fruit like blackberries.
A dance. Wow.
Yes. I was really enjoying this one last night.
What kind of dance? Is this like a tango? Is it a salsa? Like, what are we dealing with here?
It's a hoedown. No.
That's not right.
That's not it. It's, what would I say? Something that, more than two people take part in, but that like somehow melds together like a contemporary dance you would see on one of those TV shows, like So You Think You Can Dance, with a group where they kind of all do these movements and they're flowing back and forth and everything is so well coordinated that it just works.
Wow. I was thinking like flamenco dance, something like that.
No, that almost feels too sharp for this.
Okay, all right. You're the one tasting it, so I'll defer to your authority on that one.
Yeah, this one feels more flowy to me. It's just doing what it does so well together that it doesn't have edges.
Well, and I'm glad that you brought this up because since Joy came out, Appleton has done a number of these limited special bottlings. I think they did a 30-year or something like that. They did Appleton Ruby. And as listeners will know, we haven't always been the biggest fans of some of these special releases, including Ruby, which was significantly more expensive than Joy was. I think Ruby started around like 4 or 5, maybe more than that, 500, 800,
I think it was
maybe
even more. I think it was like $7.99.
Yeah, it was pretty expensive, and we only had samples of it, but did multiple tastings. And I remember that rum specifically. It was like a complete, what were they thinking with this one? But it's nice to me to hear that Joy has aged well, because that's a rum that I still think a lot of rum enthusiasts express enthusiasm for. And maybe it's because I do feel like it came out at a time when a lot of people were sort of kind of really getting into rum. And so I think your experience tracks with a lot of other people, as like they got it kind of early in their rum journey. So I think a lot of people feel a special connection to it. But it sounds like your opinion of it has actually improved. By the way, hold the bottle up. How much have you actually consumed? I want to see.
Hold on. I put it back in the case.
Oh, you got to disassemble and everything. Yeah, it's an elaborate case.
There you go. Let's look at how much. Very little. I would say maybe less than a fifth is gone.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
You got to get cracking on that.
Again, remember, I didn't really care for it, but I also, having paid for it and knowing how rare it is, didn't want to get rid of it or do anything like stupid with it, like put it in a rum and Coke. So, it just sat there. But I'm super pleased to have that much of it left to go because I'm enjoying it so much now that I feel like this was a case where the rum was ready, but I wasn't. And now that I feel like I'm in a place where I can more enjoy it, I'm really happy. It's sublimely balanced, intensely pleasurable. It's a joy to drink.
Ooh, very nice.
And I would say, Will, this is one of the 3 best rums I've tasted all year.
Wow, really?
Yeah, even at 45%.
That's awesome.
It's good.
Well, I wish I had a third rum that I was as enthusiastic about. And the funny thing is, I even pulled this out and brought it up here because it's a rum that I was thinking about that is similar to yours, which is Appleton 21. However, I did not end up revisiting this because it would have been a second violation of the rules. That's
just too much violation for one episode.
Yeah, I've revisited this actually within the last 3 months or so. As you can see, I have very little left. There's less than a fifth left in this bottle. And Appleton 20, this is like the old Appleton 21 bottle. I know I bought this in maybe 2018 or 2019. It actually says bottled in 2018, so I probably bought it in 2019. Anyway, that's one. I feel the same way about this, where I think when I initially got it, I was a little underwhelmed. But when I revisit it now, I'm like, damn, that's a really good rum, you know? Even though it's, 43% ABV, it's really good. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. Instead, I wanted to go a different direction. And some listeners will know that the first rum thing I did was not the Rumcast, but a website called American Rum Report, and which is all about American rums and wanting to get more information out there about them, not just to like promote them, but just so people can see like how are these actually made, like what's going on in American rum. And so in my early days, almost any time I would see a rum from an American distillery, I would buy it and, just kind of give it a whirl. And most of the time that was something that was either relatively uninteresting or not good. However, there are also cases where there would be something that was outstanding. So I'm not trying to besmirch the category or anything. It's just one of those things. And I think I talked about this in our Guide to American Rum episode, but
it's come a long way in that time too.
Well, that too, but also there's just so many people doing it that like there's hundreds and hundreds of distilleries doing it. So if only 10% of them are decent, that's still like 40 or 50 something decent rum. So like they're out there, but it's so widespread and distribution is so localized that it can be hard to find those things. Anyway, there was an American rum that was all the way in the back of my cabinet that I truly had not even thought about at all. And it was very full. So I knew that my initial impression of it must have just been a solid meh. I remembered enough about it to know that I didn't think it was outright bad or anything, but just postcard example or textbook example, I think is the expression of nothing to write home about. I got those. I was thinking nothing to write home about. I thought postcard, textbook example. Anyway,
I get you.
This is an old bottle, so they don't even call this rum what it is anymore. But anyway, this is from Bayou rum out of Louisiana. It is
on the bayou.
A little John Fogerty in there.
On the bayou.
Oh, there we go. I'm back in my dad's car. My dad loved CCR.
I love CCR too.
I like him too. Actually, I went to a John Fogerty concert with my dad in it must have been 2005 or 2006 at the Starwood Amphitheater in Nashville, which has not existed now in over a decade. And it was quite a spectacle. He played center field, and when he played that song, he switched to a baseball bat guitar, which was quite the gimmick. But anyway,
that's awesome. Great.
This is the
Bayou. Yeah.
But anyway, Bayou Rum Select Barrel. So this is a distillery in Louisiana. It's an interesting American distillery because it's one of the few craft distilleries that was acquired by a major company and kind of expanded and has sort of widespread distribution. It was acquired by Stoli Group a while back, and I think they've invested a decent amount into the brand. It's grown quite a bit since then. I don't know anything, about how well they're doing or anything like that, but this is an 80 proof rum. At the time, it was a blend of rums that I think were aged 3 years or less. And they kind of described it as like a Solera approach. I don't know if it's like the actual Solera approach, but it's some sort of combining barrels of different ages and things like that.
Give me a lot of red flags here, Will.
I'm about to give you some more. If you go to their website now, so the Select rum doesn't exist anymore, but it's not that the rum doesn't exist. It's they have a different name for it in their lineup.
They stopped selecting it.
They stopped selecting it and they started reserving it. So it's the Bayou Reserve rum. And if you go to the website and read about it, it's got a tagline, John, a tagline.
Okay. I'm all about the taglines.
It is. I'll give you this tagline and you rate it on a scale of 1 to 10.
Okay.
It is the rum for bourbon drinkers.
Oh, get the fuck out of here with that. Oh, that's a 1.
Oh, one. That's hard. That seems harsh.
Terrible. That's not even a tagline. That's just like, I don't know. That's bullshit marketing 101. Like,
Ooh.
yeah,
Very
that doesn't
harsh.
work for me. No, it doesn't have anything to do with the bayou or a gator or anything either. You come on.
Yeah, I think they've dialed back the gator imagery in the branding, which I think was smart because I mean, I think alligators are cool. You know, when the Hamden labels have those alligators on them, I think they're super cool. This is almost like a sports mascot, like cartoony gator, if you see there. So I think they went away from that. It's a better package now. But anyway, also on the website in describing, because I think the average age was younger when I bought this, but now it says matured in wet ex-bourbon barrels for up to 4 years for extra bourbon notes.
Wow.
So they really want you to know it's the rum for bourbon drinkers. Like they basically just stopped short of saying we flavored this rum with bourbon.
I mean, there's one stop left on that train line, and it's Boo Rum, right?
Boo Rum.
Yeah, or Rumbin. I don't know which one's worse.
I think Boo Rum is better.
Boo Rum.
I think that works. Yeah. Anyway, so I know we're poking fun at the marketing a little. What rubs you the wrong way about that? You had a very visceral reaction to it. Why do you not like it?
All of it. No, but why do I not like it? Well, number one, it's rum, not bourbon, right? And I get that you want to try to pull from different spirit categories, but I think that's way heavy-handed in how they're doing it. And it reeks of marketing more than it reeks of quality of the product, right? What I'm looking for is authenticity and saying, hey, we believe in this product to be a good product. And I'm fine with, if you're at a show and you say, hey, what's your drink of choice? And somebody says bourbon and you say, you got to try this rum. I'm okay with that. Like, that's fine. But like to put it as the identity of the product is not a good strategy, in my opinion. Yeah.
I would add to what you say, but I think you said it all. You speak for me there as well. I agree completely. Anyway, but what this is all about is seeing how has perception changed. And like I said, I mean, there's not that much missing from the bottle, John. I barely made it out of the neck
a
here.
Neck pour. Yeah.
So I think this is one I tried and was just like, well, okay. So revisiting it now, I will say it delivers on the promise. This is a very bourbon-esque rum. It's a sweet rum for sure. There's like honey, graham cracker, but where it really like kicks it in overdrive, it's like overwhelming vanilla frosting is what I get with this. Just like so much vanilla. I don't think it has additives or anything.
Yeah.
Like it's sweet in the sense of like a naturally sweet rum. Okay. And there's nothing off or offensive or bad about it. And I could see people enjoying this who are maybe not as fond of like offbeat, interesting, different flavors in their spirit. So I think they set out to make a rum for bourbon drinkers. They made a rum that tastes a lot like bourbon. And I actually think one of the interesting things about the whole rum for bourbon drinkers thing is there's some truth to the idea of people who like bourbon wanting to drink a rum that reminds them of bourbon, right?
Sure.
There's a comfort zone, right?
But I also, to a certain extent, especially early on in my rum journey.
Yeah, as you kind of, transition into becoming a rum enthusiast. But I think there's also a category of bourbon enthusiasts who, if they want something that drinks like bourbon, they're just going to drink bourbon, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, why would I go to rum for an inferior version of what I like about bourbon? And I think this one just leans a little too hard into the whole bourbon thing. And I'd actually be interested, maybe this will be an update for a future episode, but I kind of want to go get a bottle of the Reserve because this is distributed here and just kind of see how it's evolved and if it's different. And I would assume it probably isn't that different just because like this is the current branding I'm describing. Like these are words from their website, the rum for bourbon drinkers, matured in wet ex-bourbon barrels for extra bourbon notes. So I'm assuming they've just leaned into it harder, but I am a little curious. And this is also, it does the very American craft distillery thing of being a blend of unrefined cane sugar and molasses is, I believe, how they do this, pot distilled. But anyway, so yeah, it's just kind of interesting because like you're in Louisiana, you have access to sugarcane byproducts that a lot of other American producers don't. It seems like you would want to really lean into that regionality, but instead you're really leaning into, I mean, obviously the regionality comes through in their branding. Bayou, there's alligators, you know, there's kind of like someone rowing a boat through a swamp on the label. But everything about the liquid itself, other than saying we use local ingredients, is like, this is like bourbon, which has no regional ties really to Louisiana, even though there are some people in Louisiana making bourbon now. Anyway, all that to say, I think my opinion of it now is actually exactly the same. So I unintentionally, but I've selected all three options. I started with Myers's. My opinion has gone down. Grander, 12-year opinion has gone up. Bayou Select has stayed exactly the same. Pending reviewing a recent bottle, which I'll have to do that experiment for the show and just to be fair to them as well. But also, I mean, this is just one person's opinion, so it's not a big deal if I don't like this rum. But, and again, there's nothing off or bad per se. It's just I'm not in that target market of wanting a rum that tastes like bourbon, and that's very much what they have created here in my eyes.
Right. Well, and what is the rest of their line like? I mean, do you have a lot of experience with that? Do they actually have some good rums? You know,
I don't have any experience with the rest of their line, really.
I don't either.
This is the extent I bought this bottle, and I was like, I think I'm good. You know, if this is kind of what they're about in terms of their perspective as producers, I want something that is trying to taste a little bit more like rum.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the reason I'm asking that is because I could see it as a strategy. I'm not going to say it's a good strategy, but a strategy for a craft distiller, knowing some of the challenges that we've talked about many times before for American craft distillers for rum, and saying like, you know, maybe that's their strategy of saying we're going to kind of cater a little bit more to what we think is hot in the market right now, which is bourbon. They're not far, you know, just a little bit south from that region of bourbon country, and those people visiting their area.
I think your perception of southeastern geography, but like Louisiana's a long way from Kentucky, John.
No, I mean, like, yes, I'm not saying it's bordering, but it's close. it's not.
I mean, it's close
far.
Relative to like California being close to Kentucky, yeah. But
yes, and I'm just saying, like, if you go pretty much due south-ish, depending on where you're at in Tennessee or Kentucky, like, you're gonna get into that region. And I'm not looking at a map right now, so call me out on that. But like, it's roughly south of there, and I could feel like people that are going to the ocean, into the Gulf, they're gonna be nearby somewhere there. And you know, what do they do when they go on vacation? They want, give me some bourbon. Oh, well, I guess this is a bourbon-like rum.
I mean, New Orleans does have Bourbon Street, so it's got that going for it.
Fair. Yeah. And so, you know, I just feel like maybe that was a strategy going in where they said, look, we're going to try to lead people in, ease them in slowly, and maybe it works, and maybe that's why they still have this product after years. Because you have to imagine if it was shit, in the sense of like it didn't sell, it wouldn't continue to be on the shelf. Or maybe that is the idea behind making it reserve instead of select. I don't know. You know, they're trying. Maybe it was the select part that was the problem. I can't imagine. But anyway, long story short is I wonder if this was an intentional strategy for them to try to pull people in, and if it's worked. And I would love to know if that worked for anybody out there. You know, maybe there's a few souls out there who said, yep, I found my way into rum through Bayou Wet Bourbon Cask Select, whatever it's called.
Yeah, let us know. And I think that pretty much wraps up the exercise. But I hope that this inspires listeners out there to revisit the back of your cabinet. Go reach back there and pull something out from that you haven't tried in at least 2 years. That's maybe from your earlier rum journey days, that maybe you even kind of look at with an eyebrow raised now, and let us know, you know, give it a try. Let us know how your thoughts have evolved. I'd just love to know like what other rums people find when they do this exercise. So do that. Send us an email at host@rumcast.com. That's HOST@rumcast.com. And John, I'm actually thinking we may have to make this the theme for the May happy hour for our Patreon subscribers. Idea. The back of the cabinet rum. So yeah, if you want to get in on that as well, you can go to patreon.com/therumcast, join us for online happy hours, support the show, bonus episodes, all that good stuff. And as I said, you can email us to describe your back of the cabinet adventure. We'd love to read some of those on the show, or they can contact us on social media. John, where can they find us?
Yeah, send us a pic or shout out at the Rumcast on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter, and let us know. Take a picture of what you're drinking and show us and tell us why. We'd love to see that. We'd love to hear more about if you like it or not. Have your taste changed, just like we talked about? And what song are you singing, or what TV show are you watching while you're doing that? Get back to that.
What dance are you dancing?
What dance are you dancing? Yeah, any of that stuff that you haven't done in a few years, but you go back to and you enjoy yourself doing it. That's the important part, right? So until that time, we'll be back in a few weeks with another episode, some more interviews we have lined up, some good stuff coming. So until then, I'll see you next time.
Cheers.